And welcome, Jessica Winn. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. You are project manager at the AARP Foundation.
That's right.
All right, let's go back 8 years ago when you were graduating from the graduate program at the SI Newhouse School of Syracuse University. That's where we met, and
hmm
it's been quite a journey. Jessica, can you talk about your first couple of years out of graduation? You did some work for Edelman Public Relations. Can you talk about agency life and what that is all about?
Sure. So leaving Syracuse, I did an internship at the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of American History, and I did all sorts of PR work there, which included the Muppets, included Tony Hawk, included just a whole range of things. I even got to hold Ulysses S. Grant's presentation sword from Tiffany,
Ooh,
the jeweler. So
cool.
that was just a wonderful experience. But from there, I went to Edelman PR to get a taste of the agency life. You know, especially leaving Syracuse, they really pushed the importance of working in an agency, and I would agree with that to an extent. It was great to have that internship, that experience to understand how to work with different clients in a fast-paced environment. But I quickly realized agency life wasn't for me.
So if you can name two things that when people think about going into agency life, name two things that are amazing about agency life and the two things that are not so great that people don't really think about.
Sure. So the two things that are really great about agency life is it has a vibrancy. So there's just a lot of energy, and of course, it depends on which agency you go to. But agencies tend to have a much more um, laid back kind of, not laid back, but kind of like a casualness that's a little more vibrant and feels somewhat like startup work, you know?
Mhm.
And then I also really like how even just within an internship, especially as a graduate intern, you just learn so quickly. You 1 year at an agency, you're probably going to learn if you were comparing yourself to someone who just went straight to in-house
Mhm.
or some other kind of work, contract work. One house in an agency life, you're probably going to get I would say double, maybe triple the amount of experience that you would get in-house.
Mhm. So it's like dog years, right? It's a much more intense and faster. All right. So and the two things that are not so great about agency that most people never think about.
Yeah. So for me coming as a woman of color, I did feel at least, and that this was back then. I know some things are being changed, but I did feel it was a very dominant white culture. Even if they tried to include diversity and inclusion in their work, it felt very much like uh, you just felt surrounded and there wasn't a whole lot of diversity there. So that struck me. And then another thing that struck me was there is just no work-life balance.
Right.
You work constantly. Even as an intern, they will say, "Oh, you only need to work 8 hours a day." That's a lie. You're gonna work through your lunches. You're going to work early, work late. It's just there's no work-life balance.
Maybe that's why you learn double in 1 year, right? Because you're just
Yes.
working all the time. All right, very cool. So let's continue the journey. So from Edelman, you continued to AARP. Now, can you give, for those who are not familiar, some college students may not be familiar with AARP, give a quick explanation of what this organization does.
Yeah, sure. So ARP is a membership organization with a social mission. We like to say our social mission comes first, but we have 38 million
What is
members.
the social mission?
Our social mission is to support older adults 50 plus in their life. So basically, I'm sorry, I'm not articulating it correctly, but
No, you're good, you're
basically
good.
We want them to have more possibilities as they age, not diminished possibilities. So, 50 plus is a wide swath of people. They're not all the same. They come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, their cultural backgrounds. So not everyone's going to want the same things. Some people will want to do the traditional retirement. Some people won't. So it's basically about empowering them to make their life decisions and making sure that they have those opportunities.
Perfect. So you're working for AARP in the research in the public relations department initially, right?
Right, right.
Can you speak about how research is used in the real world in AARP in the PR side, right? I mean, a lot of people think, research, nobody really uses it, after school. Talk to me about that.
So we actually have a huge research arm. Most people know AARP for its advocacy work, and we have a public policy institute. They focus on understanding social issues with policy insights, of course. So that is one of our biggest parts of research. We also have a team that's kind of dedicated to what I would call internal research. And they also do some external research, more so than they have in the past. So they are really doing firsthand research, whereas our
Primary research, yeah.
primary research,
You remember.
whereas our policy team often looks at large government data sets. And
So secondary and primary research, very good. Let's talk about qualitative research. So in my class, my students learn in-depth interviews, focus group, participant observations. Where did you experience the usage? Which departments use qualitative research, and what kind of questions do they answer with these qualitative techniques?
Sure. So oftentimes what happens is we put out a survey, we put out a poll, we get the quantitative research, but it doesn't really dive into the why or the how of an issue. So for instance, with millennial family caregivers, we're looking at people who are caring for older adults or even younger adults like veterans who come back disabled, and they're juggling their life with the care of someone else. So we were looking at millennial family caregivers and their specific experiences. We have the data with, they say, oh, I feel less supported at work. But why do they feel less supported at work? Well, then we had these dinners, focus group dinners, where we dived into their experiences, understanding what their pain points were. And what we found out from those dinners and insights was basically that they felt less supported than many other family caregivers because they didn't feel seen. Since people didn't expect them to be caring for an older adult, for a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, their bosses didn't understand that they were taking care of someone. They said they would feel like their colleagues who had children, small children, were more supported than them. And they also felt less able to speak about their experience because they didn't have anyone who could relate to them in their cohort. So I think having that focus group, having those in-depth conversations is really what helps us to understand the quantitative research.
It's really interesting. I never thought about that. I mean, yeah. So sometimes the survey results, you look at it, you see patterns, but you don't really understand why. And by talking to people, you can delve in deeper and explore
Right.
feelings, motivations, the things that are not always apparent in the numbers, right?
Exactly. And one point I would make for all of you who go out there in the world is when you do those focus groups, always ask them if they're willing to speak with the media. Because the media oftentimes even want more information. They want more story and background. So always ask them, capture their contact information, because the media will definitely want to hear more.
Really? Can you talk more about that? Because I've never heard this before, and I've been in the field for a long time. So you're essentially suggesting that focus group participants can be a part of an organization's media relations arm.
Absolutely. So the media professionals, journalists, writers, they want stories. They want the data, of course. They want to be able to say, you know, X amount of people say this or feel this or have this issue, but then they want the story. So focus groups help you find some of the more detailed stories, but they usually want to hone in on a specific person's story. So when you have a great focus group with individuals who have specific issues that are sometimes hard to just find someone off the street with this specific issue. You have contacts now that you can provide to the media and say, hey, you want to cover our research and talk to our expert. We also have this person you can speak to about their personal story.
So of course, with consent, right? And so interesting. Thank you so much for that. It's really good. All right, let's continue the conversation a little bit. So you guys do primary research, secondary research, you use research to make decisions and understand your stakeholders on a variety of topics. Let's talk about the media relations overall of AARP. You were mentioning to me before we began recording that the AARP has the largest circulated magazine in the United States. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. A lot of people don't realize that we're more than just an advocacy organization. So yes, we do have a large content arm.
Can you speak more about the content arm? So you have the magazine. Do you use social media at all?
Absolutely, we have a social media team. I do some social media, but our social media team is dedicated to everything from the marketing side to the organic side.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm assuming everybody's thinking social media, they think Gen Z, early millennials, right? Or even early Gen Xers, right? But can you talk about, I'm almost 50, right? But I mean, can you talk about 50-plus-year-olds and where they live in social?
Sure. So yeah, a lot of people kind of have this dated concept that older adults are anti-technology, and that's just not true. I don't have the stats with me right now, but we do have research on that. And older adults are on social media. They primarily, if you look at the larger algorithm, the larger sets, they're on Facebook. And I think that's not really surprising to a lot of folks. Facebook is the #1, followed by LinkedIn and Twitter. You'll see that older adults, I think in the 40s, because we do look at 40s as they're getting closer to that 50 point.
Thank you. Thank you.
They're skewing different, so it's going to change. And I thought it was pretty crazy to think about it, but millennials are, the oldest millennials are only about 15 years away from being 50. So we're on the way too.
All right, so interesting. All right, Jessica, you now moved into a new role a couple of years ago. You're in the AARP Foundation. Can you speak about that, what you do over there and what the mission of the AARP Foundation?
Sure. So the mission of the AARP Foundation is to end senior poverty, basically. So while as AARP focuses on older adults 50 plus, they come from very many different socioeconomic backgrounds, and AARP Foundation focuses primarily on low-income older adults 50 plus. So our work focuses on helping them earn income and helping them increase their income, increase their benefits, also in increasing social connection.
A really important issue, especially these days of social isolation with coronavirus.
Right, right. And we actually worked with the National Academies of Science to come out with some research on social isolation in older adults. That's pretty interesting. It's focused more on the healthcare side. But yeah, it's a major issue, leads to so many health issues and higher early mortality rates.
Amazing. Jessica, this is so interesting. You have such an interesting job, and it sounds like research is a part of the job everywhere in AARP. As we summarize, let's talk about the following, and that is students sitting in a classroom oftentimes feel like there is a dream job out there. But you had a journey that I assume when you were in school, you weren't thinking one day I'm going to work for the AARP. Can you give some words of wisdom and advice to students who are listening to you right now?
I actually do believe in a dream job. So my dream job, actually leaving Syracuse, was to go to the Smithsonian, and I had a chance to work there. It was an internship, so it wasn't a long stint, but I did get a chance to do that, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. In fact, I was offered a internship from Edelman right out the gate, and I didn't want it because I had this opportunity with the Smithsonian. And then I ended up getting the Edelman internship anyway. So I would just say, and I also had a friend um, who had a long stint of unemployment or underemployment because she also held out for that dream job, and now she works for EA Sports. Um, so I mean, like, I would say you need to be practical. You need to pay the bills. So don't just not work because you want a dream job. And then also you need to be flexible because your dreams will change. Um, but I wouldn't tell people to give up on those dream jobs because you're passionate about something, and you should harness that passion.
That is wonderful, wonderful life advice. Follow your dreams, follow your passions, and you can always get that boring job when you're 30 something.
Right,
So,
right. And you
wonderful all
might
about that.
think the boring job is boring until you start doing it and you realize how interesting it is. So that's where I say just be flexible, because you'll find out so many different interests as you get along in your career.
Jessica, wow, such great stuff. Thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I hope my students learned as much, if not more. And I really want to thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, it's great seeing you after all these years. Thank you so much.
All right, bye.